Welcome to Open Mic with Groove Kitty. Our aim is to have authentic, engaging conversations with interesting people. This podcast is for you, so please share, like, follow, and subscribe. When you do, it increases our exposure on each platform, which in turn helps to promote our guests. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. Now, without further ado, on to our show.
Well, it was 5 days ago. I tried to make a stand. I was a shaking and a sweating with a gun in my hand. Can't hardly think, it don't matter at all. I've been drinking black coffee and alcohol. Well, I've been here before and I'll be here again. I breathe the dark, stiff drink like oxygen. Ain't worried about crashing or from withdrawal, cause I pump black coffee and alcohol. I start every day with a caffeine high, gives me the right amount of kick it just to get me by. Seems like after 8 hours or so, I got a bottle in my hand and nowhere to go. Before I can't, oh baby, it's a sudden stop. I get tired of climbing, never reaching the top. Could try to cut me open, don't matter at all. I just bleed black coffee and alcohol. Hey! I start every day with a caffeine high, gives me the right amount of kick just to get me by. Seems like after 8 hours or so, I got a bottle in my hand and nowhere to go. The front can't, oh baby, it's a sudden stop. I get tired of climbing, never reaching the top. Could try to cut me open, don't matter at all. I just bleed black coffee and alcohol.
I try to do like an accurate 1950s kind of feel and all that. I try to get that same kind of feel out of the recording and all that as well, without having any vintage equipment or the money to do any of that. But I want more of a grittier kind of like overdriven kind of sound.
Yeah, that's what I meant by dirty, kind of like
Yeah.
overdriven. It just really, it it sounded like to me like if AC/DC were rockabilly, they would have that energy. Maybe not sound like you, but they would have, because that single has a lot like kapow.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
what
really good.
Good. That's exactly what I was going for. So
Yeah,
I'm
you
glad
got
it's
it. You nailed the kapow.
Thank you. Yeah, Ronnie's great. Ronnie actually played upright bass for Brian Setzer back in the early 2000s. He had an outfit he put together called Brian Setzer and the Nash Villains, and he played upright bass. And actually, Guitar Hero, I forget which one, Stray Cat Strut, that's on Guitar Hero. When you listen to the upright bass, that's actually him playing upright bass on it.
Wow.
But so he's kind of a legend, and he's a phenomenal player, phenomenal guy too. He's such a cool
great.
guy.
How'd you guys meet?
Well, I met him down in Florida when I was playing Rockabilly, Florida. I think year number 3 or 4, and that's the first time I heard about Hillbilly Casino several times. But I'd never seen them live, and they were on the main stage live down there, and they just blew me away. So after they got off stage, or by the merch table, and I went over there and hung out with them and got to meet them and talk to them, and they were just the coolest guys ever. They were just like, yeah, come on, man, hanging out and stuff, and they
I
were
think
just
with
really
your
cool.
personality, you bring out the cool in others.
Oh, really?
That's-
Oh, that's cool.
Look how cool I am right now.
gonna
But
say-
before you walked through the door, there was no cool. Now I'm cool, yeah.
Well, hey, man, I'll take that, I guess. Yeah, man.
We've lowered your standards tremendously in here.
No, not at all, man. I'm an uncool dad. I'm not rock and roll really at all. Besides my music and my clothing, I guess.
Speaking of the clothing, I kind of dig those boots. I got a thing about like cool vintage clothes and boots and things like that. So where'd you get those? You remember?
Oh yeah, actually these are Freebirds actually, and they actually have a boot store right on King Street now.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I got them there. I will kind of give you a little bit of a warning. The sole didn't really last that long in them. I had to get them replaced
Yeah.
fairly quickly, and even the people that replaced it kind of started falling apart pretty quickly after that too. But then again, man, I pretty much only wear these on stage for the most part.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you ever see my live shows, I'm just like jumping around and just
Well, that's one of the reasons I asked too. I was going to ask you how comfortable they are on stage because I'm the same way. And generally we play, it's 3 straight hours, no breaks. We're just going and we're going, balls to the walls. And I need something on my feet that don't, because otherwise I'm dead by the end of the night,
Sure, yeah. Comfortability wise, I'll say they're great.
Yeah.
I do have some insoles in here because I used to work at a paper mill, staying on my feet for like 12-hour shifts.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Swing
yeah.
On the
shift.
cement.
On the cement,
Yep.
walking back and forth, through the machine and all that, doing maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So very hard on my feet and back and all that. So I started wearing insoles, and then when I got these boots, I put them right in there, and they've really helped out a lot.
What kind of insoles?
Man, I don't even remember. They're probably pretty generic.
Yeah. Just like any shit you buy on.
Yeah, you could probably find them at Walmart or Dr. Scholl's or whatnot. Same
Right,
kind of
right.
deal. But yeah.
So rockabilly is, it's foundational, but it's it's foundational, and it's something that Scott and I and you would appreciate. But younger kids, they would have to discover it, right? It's not like bombarding them on the radio.
Sure.
So when you chose this genre of music, it was obviously like it's what you wanted to do, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think that is the greatest thing. That's one thing about Groove Kitty is we are very self-indulgent, and it really works. It works
is.
because you get the energy. You've got the energy, right?
Yeah.
And I hear your songs, and it's got tons of energy. So when you write, I mean, do you write with the intention of that outcome? Rock, or could it be anything, and you just maybe that's not a rockabilly tune.
Yeah, well, I would say when I first started out as Jared Petteys and the Headliners, it was kind of like a rockabilly project. I was actually a blues player previously. Played a lot of like Southern rock, classic rock, blues, stuff like that. A lot of cover stuff.
Freebird.
Not Freebird, not that one. Although I get that request all the time, believe it or not. But
I've heard so many great lines. Freebird, no free all of them. Or Freebird, I think this is Scott, or Scott says, it won't be free. Yeah.
I had a bass player that'd flip off the audience every time they like, "There's your Freebird right there." Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty funny. Yes, so I started out playing that kind of stuff. Kind of just everything that really resonated with me. The stuff that I grew up with. My dad listened to, a lot of blues-based stuff, a lot of, blues rock, hair metal, even, grunge was coming around when I was a kid, and then punk, pop came out, pop punk and all that stuff came out, when I was an adolescent. So, of course, that had some influence in there. But I was gravitating more towards, like, Stevie Ray Vaughan when I was a kid. When I heard his music, that's the first time I heard somebody play an instrument that made me feel something off the instrument alone. And then that was like, lightning a bottle. How the hell do I do that? Like, that's what I want to do. So that's what got me into it. And then as I kind of, grew up and started expanding a little more, I found people like, started like digging into more like Jimi Hendrix and like Eric Clapton. And then it started going, the clock started going back. So it's like, well, where do they get their influence from?
Yeah.
So I started listening to like Albert King and like Freddie King and Robert Johnson and Charlie Parker, and
Any
just kept
John
going
Mayall?
back.
Did you do any of the John Mayall, the British
I
blues,
did a
yeah.
little bit. I did. That's still something I need to dig into more. I pretty much, I, man, it's just whatever kind of like stings my ear. There's a
Mm.
certain thing that I'll get, and it changes all the time. Because at first it was just Steve Ray Vaughan, and like I remember when I first started playing his stuff, like I didn't care about anything else that was going on. I'm like I don't care about like it's not this, But then once you kind of get used to that, and then you naturally want to expand and start trying to find other things, and then my ear starts to kind of change a little bit, kind of like taste buds. They regenerate, and then I feel like it's the same thing for music. And British blues was always really cool to me, and I've always pulled a lot of stuff off that, but almost like secondhand in a way. Like I was listening to a lot of Joe Bonamassa, like early 2000s, and he was doing a lot of that kind of stuff. So that's how I kind of got into them a little bit. But I still feel like there's a lot of stuff there that I'm just missing out on that I need to dig deeper on. And it seems like it's always kind of like that. I'm like in this little box, and I'm kind of like in my own little world. And then when that, my attention shifts, then I'll introduce something else from that world. So going back to your question, yeah, I wasn't actually really a rockabilly player until I went to Nashville and decided I wanted to do rockabilly. And then it started out like that, where it was like I wanted to kind of fit in that box, but I was kind of exploring that scene and exploring that kind of music, and kind of picking things out of it that I wanted to incorporate into my own music. And then, fairly recently, I started really just throwing that wall out and just being like, I don't want to be pigeonholed into just rockabilly. Like I'm a blues guy, like I'm a rock guy. I love, like elements of punk. I love elements of jump blues. I love all these different things. And I didn't want to like hold myself back from creating something completely fresh and brand new. So a lot of the stuff you're hearing nowadays that I'm putting out has elements of all kinds of stuff. And I got a lot of stuff in the works right now that is like completely different than what I do. But for the people I have played it for so far, it's really funny because it's paradoxical, because to me, I think I'm making these giant leaps and bounds in a complete different direction. But then other people are like, oh, that just sounds like something else you do. And I'm like, oh, really? Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
So, yeah,
Well,
exactly.
The blues in general, I think, are funny that way, because some people do have that. I'm a huge blues guy as well. We were talking beforehand about some of the people that we love. And some people just go, it just all sounds the same to me. Just like sounds like another 145 of some kind and whatever. And I'm like, boy, there's so much. To me, there's so much there.
Sure.
And I hear every bit of it is a little bit different, and the tone and the feel and just all of it is very unique to the player. You talk about Stevie Ray. 2, 3, 4 notes in, who's playing that guitar. That sound can't be made by anybody else. Exactly. Jimmy, the same thing. Clapton, all these guys. Carl Perkins. You hear these guys play, and you know right away who it is. And so I think there's something very guttural, like you feel that or you don't, right? And if you do, then like you said, for you, it's following that authenticity of what you are feeling inside of you when you're writing that song or playing that lick or doing whatever you're doing. You're not necessarily thinking about, now anyway, I want to write a song that fits in this particular type of box. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's something I think we all kind of struggle with, is like an identity. We all want to come from this place of authenticity, but I mean, we're all human beings, so we don't really even know what that even is. You know what I mean? We know what we like, we know what we don't like, but then to be able to hold yourself to that candle and be able to mesh with that and come out with something that you can go on stage night after night and believe, so you can deliver that to the audience. Because if you don't believe in what you're doing, like, you don't have anything,
Right.
But it's such a hard thing, man, because it's a ever changing, ever moving, shifting kind of thing. And it's like, we all go through that same thing all the time, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think the struggle now too is, I mean, we're 70 years into kind of this, let's call it rock and roll, right? From the 50s on. It's not new anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So how do you keep reinventing something that's unique and different and authentic when there are only so many notes on the board that you can play, only so many combinations of those notes? So yes, everything's probably been played in some way. How can you make it different and unique? And at the same time, anything that's coming through you is based on your past influences and your years of listening to all those guys.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, do you ever find yourself when you're writing something saying, shit, I think this sounds like somebody else's thing. I don't know if it's just coming. I'm copying something, or am I just feeling something new? Do you ever go through that?
Absolutely. I've The funny thing is about that too is that I'll have other people recognize it, like other band members. Like I've written brand new songs before that I'm like, man, this is like again like cutting edge, something new. And they'll be like, "Oh, that sounds just like Just Go Baby," like another song I released.
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, it doesn't." In my head, in my head, it sounds. Of course, it's tough to be able to once you get it out and get it recorded and produced and all that. It's a different story. But trying to portray that to the band, I'm like, well, that it's different because of this or that. And the way I write music is I kind of compose the music first, and then lyrics are kind of like afterwards.
Got it.
So I kind of get that to link up with that, and sometimes I'll have to go back and change the composition order to match the lyrics if the lyrics seem to like be in a better direction if I do something else to it. But yeah, I'll definitely go into that. It's really funny. Actually, yesterday I remember I was writing this song "Lonely." This is on my first record. It was like the first ballad I ever did, and it's a typical kind of 1950s kind of sounding ballad. I actually wrote it about my drummer Ron, who unfortunately passed away from cancer years back. His love interest, he was going through some stuff, so I ended up writing this song for him pretty much. And the vocal melody for it, I thought it was reminiscent of what I saw in the movie Home Alone once.
Mm.
And then I remember like going through Home Alone movie and like looking for him, like, no, it's not there. We just recently got a van. It's got a TV in it, and it's like for touring in for like the kids and all that stuff. So it came with a DVD player in there, and the kids want to just put in a DVD, even though we're going right around the corner or something like that. So we had the movie Elf in there, and then Elf is playing in the background. I'm like, that's it. That's the part. That's the part right there. So I feel like a lot of stuff. I mean, nothing's brand new. Nothing's like absolutely original. We're all part of this same kind of existence together, and we're all like, if you look at the greats like Ray Charles, you look at Little Richard, you look at Stevie Ray Vaughan, they're all just essentially copying something else they heard before.
100%. Yeah.
But I heard like the trick behind that is like if you take from one person, it's stealing. If you take from many people, it's research, right?
Yeah.
So that's I try to just keep it there. I used to get really self-conscious about that kind of deal and be like, well, I don't want to sound like anything like else. But then I was just like getting to a point where I just wasn't finding any creativity anymore.
Yeah.
And then I started hearing a lot of modern stuff that's coming out that's like totally just taking from something else, and it's completely obvious. I'm like, wait a minute, if they're doing that, then why am I so self-conscious about something that literally nobody knows? And like, and it's not that anyway. It's like I want to be able to like give a nod to my heroes, to the people that influenced me, and I want them to be able to hear my music and say, well, where, just like I did, like where did he get that from?
Right.
And get down this rabbit hole and discover these great artists that you don't really hear of anymore because just time and all that kind of stuff. They kind of get buried after a while. But yeah, when it comes to rock and roll, yes, it's been around for a long time. I think it just can keep coming because just like anything else in like human existence, it's just like it just doesn't go away. It's so primal and like gut driven that I don't think it's like ever going to be irrelevant. I think there's going to be times where the pendulum's going to swing, and I think we're seeing something interesting now where the pendulum is, I think, starting to swing back in the direction of roots rock again because people are realizing that. They're like, this is real music, and they understand it when they see it. And I'm talking about kids that are 20 years old that don't know rockabilly. They don't know blues. I've had kids come up to me that are like 19, 20, 21 years old or whatever, and they're like, wow, we've never seen, somebody play an instrument really,
Right.
or get on stage and it's real and authentic. And I'm like, yeah, it's called rock and roll, man. But, I mean, it's really funny because what happened was we had COVID that happened, and that kind of shut down everything, for artists, as you guys are well aware of. And what began to happen is you had all these college kids that they couldn't go out. They were hitting 21, and they weren't being able to go out to bars and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, the world opened back up, and these kids came out, and they didn't really have a solid understanding what live music was because they're never exposed to it. So all of a sudden, there was this brand new, fresh batch of people that didn't know what any of this was. They only knew what was on the radio or streaming platforms, stuff like that. And they're coming out and hearing this, and it's just really cool to see a 20-year-old kid get blown away by 1950 style rock and roll, man. Like that, I love seeing that. But
Well, what I think another thing COVID did was it pushed a lot of artists online more.
absolutely,
Because you had all these, musicians who would, of course, they're performing and they're recording, et cetera, but all of a sudden they're stuck at home and they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So all these people now are putting out content, and it's just raw content. It's them playing in their basement. It's them playing in their house. And so you're getting exposed to kind of back to raw music again, partially produced music, obviously, but a lot of guys just putting a camera there and just going for it, you
Yeah.
know, and world-class musicians. And everyone's sitting at home with nothing else to do but, go down the death scroll because of COVID, and they're seeing now raw music again. And then to your point, we go back out, live music explodes again because everyone just wants to get the hell out of the house.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with comedy, right?
Sure.
Comedy had a resurgence because all of a sudden there were no comedy shows. So what do the comedians do? They started just posting stuff online. They had nothing else they could do. And they're posting their 15 minutes on YouTube or, on X or Insta or whatever.
Sure.
And when COVID ended, comedy exploded again because everyone wanted to get out. And you have towns like Austin, which is a great music town, right? Austin's now become the comedy capital of the world.
Yeah.
They're opening the motherships down there. All the best acts are going down there. It just blew everything up again. So back to that kind of raw, authentic, live performance that a lot of kids prior to that weren't really exposed to, either in comedy or in music.
Yeah.
And Jared, your point of the kids seeing instruments being played, I remember when it was very common, even if you weren't a musician, to think of these artists because of their skill.
Sure.
If you see Eric Clapton play a guitar, I mean that is a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing, the whole shamil, and quantizing something in the studio, which it has its place, but there's no more instrument skill that's on display like it used to be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so maybe that's going to come back.
I think so, man. I think everything comes around full circle. And I think once rock and roll came out, it's just, it changed everything. I mean, it changed governments, it changed like racial point of views, it changed everything. And I think it's a shockwave that we can't really get past. I mean, of course, everything, we get used to stuff, the human brain, they get used to stuff and you want to advance. But taking it and moving forward, that's another thing too, is that when I first started out, I was trying to keep, rock and roll, rockabilly kind of where it was. And there's a great, I love that kind of music, the way it was produced and made back then. The equipment they use is like magic. It's just like that analog sound for some reason. It's
You
just
can almost
so
smell the
crazy.
tubes burning.
Yeah, man. It is something of pure magic. It really is. And being in this genre I have a lot of friends that play in bands that record and do it just like they did in the 50s.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. For me, I wanted something a little different. I wanted to take it and I wanted to move it forward. I wanted to add that element of like AC/DC energy, and modern music techniques. One thing I really like doing too is like I like writing parts. I don't want just a 1-4-5 straight blues, which is great, and I still do. There's definitely a great time and place for that. Actually, I saw what was it, a master class with oh man, I don't want his name slipping on my head, but he was saying the magic of man, it's too early in the morning for names. John Lee Hooker. So John Lee Hooker would have just one chord he'd play over the top. And I saw another documentary that said that, like, the less musical changes you have, the more danceable it is. So that is absolutely true. Every time I play something that's really simple, people get up and they dance and they move. And I want that in my show as well. But when it comes to, like, a lot of other stuff that I'm writing, I want different parts, kind of like you'd hear in a, key changes and stuff you'd hear like in 80s, like hair metal and stuff like that. So I'm just taking all this stuff and just mix it in. But like I was saying, like the whole point is to move it forward, to kind of like pass that torch on to the next generation of musicians that can take rock and roll and turn it into something completely different. you know?
Yeah. And I waffle a lot on that. We have this conversation a lot between, because I'm the same way. I listen to those old recordings, from like Hitsville and stuff, and you can hear the air, is what I call it.
Yeah.
And when you can hear the air, it's just there's something magical, nostalgic maybe because I'm older, I like that. And so you think, we always do the same thing. It's like, we could let's go back to the times when things were good, right? The kind of get off my lawn mentality.
Yep.
But but at the same token, you know, if you don't have people moving stuff forward, nothing new ever happens. And I can
Sure.
even remember, like in the '90s, when Trent Reznor was starting to do all this stuff on back then computers that could barely, they didn't hold a candle to what's even on our phone. And he was starting to do a lot of musical production and weird sounds, and you're thinking, okay, this is interesting. And of course, to your point, now so much stuff is just produced. Everything is produced to the max, right? And good computer, you can make a whole album in your bedroom if you want. Let's see Billie Eilish, who's been massively successful doing that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's great stuff. And so I think there's a place for all of it, and I think we all benefit from the moving forward in the creative process. And whether you're creative because you're playing something that you're actually putting your fingers on, or you're creative because you can master and mix different sounds together and do things computationally even, there's something to be said for that. So I'm always hesitant to, and I waffle all the time. Sometimes I get like, if I hear one more overly, it's like movies, right?
Yeah.
If I see one more, people will hate me for this, fucking action hero movie with a bunch of special effects with the same story over and over again, just shoot me. I don't care.
I know.
But do I want to go back to, plays in the park too? I mean, all that stuff has a place. That technology can benefit. It's storytelling at the end of the day.
It is.
So if you can still tell a good story musically or through film, if you're going to use a bunch of different stuff to do it, what's wrong with that, right? That can be
Absolutely
pretty good
nothing. It's art, man. It's all art. There's room for everything. And I look at it this way too. With the overproduction of stuff, that just leaves room for rebellion, man. Something to stand up against, So that's how punk rock came around.
Yep.
The Ramones said we made music that we wanted to listen to because we couldn't stand what was on the radio.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's room for it all. And there's, everybody's so different too. Different strokes for different folks. So, there's even as a society, you got people that kind of just are on board with everything's going on. They're going with the flow. There's people that are just built to kind of go against the grain,
Yeah.
So it's just something for everybody in it. And yeah, man.
That's a really good point. I guess if there's nothing to rebel against, then there'd be no rebellion, right? So
Yeah, and then we'd
so
all
as a
just be the
musician,
same, man.
Yeah. The part of what, and I think you might be right there because I've been seeing more and more, and this is kind of to your point of sort of things resurging as well. More and more stuff I see, content on social media now, is our live bands. Our bands playing hard, heavy, strong, powerful rock and roll again.
Yeah.
The pop stuff is all still there. It's all great. It's all hip hop, great. All these different genres, great. But I'm seeing this resurgence now of actually the guitar bands again.
Yeah.
And young ones, 20s, 25, young kids, not like a bunch of old guys like us still playing in guitar bands.
Yeah.
And
Greta Van Fleet is an example.
perfect example. Yeah.
I keep seeing one called the band called Feel. I keep seeing that. You hear that
I've been
at
seeing
all?
a ton of them lately. Yeah.
Man, they look
And
rocking, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff like that I love seeing, man. And that exactly. It's like we get a lot of the pop stuff coming out and the rap stuff, and it just opens the floor to somebody coming in and changing it up, mixing up, pushing the pendulum the other way. You know?
Yeah.
And that's where I live, man. I love that spot right there.
Well, and the other benefit to it also is the fact that because we have the ability to create, produce, and do all these things on our own without the big record companies of yesteryear,
Yeah.
you can go out and you can release your own music. You can get it out there. It makes it harder to make money, I'm sure, but it also makes it easier to get it out there. So
Hey,
you can be
speaking
more
of-
accessible.
Speaking of live bands, I was just out west, and there was a place by a bus stop where all these things. There is a band in Colorado called Yoko's Screech.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
I was like, man, they must.
Oh, man.
I just like to see that just for the name.
It's got to be. There's this video going around. It's been around for a long time, obviously, but recently I've been seeing it come up quite a bit. It's John Lennon playing with Chuck Berry.
Oh, that's
On the
a
Mike
great
Douglas
one.
show.
It says, "Please don't embarrass me in front of Chuck Berry," and she's just screaming in the mic. You see the look on
look on
Chuck
his-
Berry's face, like, "Whoa!" Man.
The first time I
Oh,
saw it, I
man.
wondered if it was real or not. I was like, is this like some AI thing that they put together? But no, it's yeah.
Yeah,
That's
well, like I
pretty
said,
funny.
I guess there's room for everything, and that's just case in point right there. Craziness, man, crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, now you can. It's like anything. You can be your own news reporter. You can be your own content creator. You can be your own musician. You can make your own movies on an iPhone. You can do all that. So it does open up the world to a lot of interesting, creative people.
Does, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're really blessed to be in this time period where we can do that kind of deal. Of course, it comes, like you said, with its downfall of just like massive saturation of just everything. It's hard to find
Yeah.
Yeah.
stuff nowadays because just everybody's doing it. But I mean, again, it's just the way the world, the world just continuously changes, and you just need to be able to stay on top of it, pretty much, and kind of just roll with the punches. But yeah, there's just so much stuff out there. I think with that too, I think just everything's changing because of that too. Like the algorithms are starting to change.
Right.
Just the way I heard some videos. I try to stay on top of music business, the way it's shifting, especially, being in this job. It's something I got to try to stay on top of because it constantly changes. But they're saying for this year in 2025 that just it's starting to get to a point where everybody's going to be able to have their own little world on their phone.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to see exactly what you love, what you like, and the algorithm is only going to show you what you like. Hopefully a lot less commercials. I'm hoping that's for the future. Hope that's in there as well.
How would
But,
we possibly know what to buy
Yeah.
if someone doesn't tell us what to buy? Right?
Oh man, yeah. I wish they'd stop with that, but yeah, that's one thing. It's like my kryptonite is just like commercials. It's like I'm trying to like dig into something because I get on these driven little paths of just like interest and like rabbit holes and stuff, and then every time a commercial gets away, I'm like,
Oh, I know.
hurry up. But I'm too stingy or I'm too cheap to like just buy out and not pay for it.
And it's funny how a lot of those commercials, like you reject them, you don't want to listen to them, but then you keep singing the song for Once Daily Jardiance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like, dang, I don't want to do that. I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, they got a way of getting in your brain. That's for sure, man.
Nothing is everything.
Yeah, they got that formula down for sure. Yeah. And that's a big thing with music too. Is like actually it's the song "The Hook" by Blues Traveler.
Yep.
The entire song's
yeah.
about how just the hook makes you stay.
Yep.
You can sing about absolute nonsense, but as long as it fits that formula, it does. They really find a good way to really click into people's heads. Doing that, and that's something, of course, I got to look into as well. With my music, like how can I make it stand out? How can I make it,
Resonate or grab
Exactly.
somebody. Yeah.
attract and keep in their head, so they're like, because what do they say? It takes like 2 to 3 times of hearing one song before it finally
Yeah.
starts to like get into somebody's head, So yeah, I got to take an element of that a little bit. I try to stay as authentic and real and primal and rootsy as possible. But that's all stuff you got to take in consideration. But
And how do you gauge that? Like when you come up with something new and you say, okay, this feels right to me. I like it. It sounds good. My band likes it. Do you test it on the road a little bit? Do you sort of where do you get a sense of, oh, that's really working, or maybe I should
just
do something different?
on stage, man. Yeah. I always start from the heart. I always start with myself. I always think you gotta. If I have to believe it before anybody else can,
Right.
right? So I try to make sure I'm checking off all the boxes. It's hitting with me. I think it's as close to being where I want it to be as possible. I used to have a really bad problem with perfectionism in the past. Like when I was first starting out, I really stifled myself a lot and held myself back from creating quite a bit because I was like, well, if it's not perfect, I don't want it out there kind of deal.
Right.
Really self-conscious. Still am. I still feel that way quite a bit. But that's something I got to that I had to push through and kind of get over myself into getting that kind of stuff out there. But yeah, I'll run it through the band. Usually the band is just kind of like, actually, I've never really had the band for the most part really too much. Yeah, I'm trying to get more feedback out of them, but I feel like it's funny with drummers and bass players. They just think everything's great. They're like, yeah, man, yeah, great.
Our band is so different.
Maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe they're holding the stuff. I don't know, but yeah, I can really tell when I hit the stage. Like when I get out there in front of people and we test it out.
Yeah.
And we play like a large variety of different kinds of venues and different kind of like settings too. So I have the opportunity to test it out in multiple different settings and see what clicks universally. See we used to play Damage Case by Motorhead. Some places that does really well.
Yeah.
Most places not so much.
Yeah.
So it all just depends. And a lot of times it's not just the music itself. It's like, can I perform it correctly? Is it within my vocal range? Am I doing this song justice? Am I, and sometimes not. Sometimes I'm not in that vocal range to give it the power.
Right.
I got kind of like this mid-range kind of voice, and I like to push the envelope at a higher note because I feel like I can get more air underneath it and deliver it with more like conviction.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So whenever things are lower for me, it's harder for me to feel that.
Yeah.
So it's tough because, and my wife always tells me, because she's like, I like it when you sing lower and slower. I'm like, yeah, but I don't feel anything when I do that, you know? And it's like she's probably correct because she's a woman. They're always correct. But so I try
We'll
to
make sure
listen
to
to
clip
her.
that part just for her. Save it.
I mean, and I say to myself, I'm kind of partially joking, but I mean, it actually is true. I'm usually wrong about most things, but I know she'd really like to hear that. But yeah, so yeah, just bring it out in front of the people and see what happens, see how they react, and I just go from there pretty much. But
So you're headed west a little bit, right? Indiana. You're going to Nashville.
yeah, we've been hitting that circuit quite a bit lately. The Midwest region is really cool. I feel like the people in that pocket of this country, for some reason, they're just really into live music. They're into roots music. They're into that kind of thing. It might have something to do with like the Rust Belt, that kind of like that blue collar kind of deal.
Yeah, lunch bucket crowd. They're hardworking. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I really click into that too because that's where I came from. I'm from that kind of that lineage, that cloth. Growing up in upstate, I grew up in upstate New York.
Where? Around Jamestown?
Near Saratoga, Glens Falls, so north of Albany on the east side at the foothills of the Adirondack Mountains. So cold, very cold in the wintertime. It got pretty hot in the summertime too. Very beautiful, but it was, I went to a very small school. I graduated 65 people in my class, which I think most people like graduated, quite a bit more. Small towns obviously are different. But yeah, it was a small mountain town. It was seasonal. Because like Lake George area and stuff, there was nothing to do there in the wintertime. There's so much snow, you can't do nothing, which was a blessing because I stayed inside and played guitar and listened to records and all that. But the music scene there was kind of really small, really kind of hard to kind of get anywhere with it, and that's why I decided to leave eventually. But yeah, very beautiful part of the country. But yeah, I was raised as in a very blue collar, hardworking family. Who's actually, the lineage has been here, traced back to 1630s in Boston, actually.
Oh, okay.
So my dad's side of the family, anyway, on the male side, has been here for a very long time.
Yeah.
So that was kind of always part of like this family, the family foundation. And I obviously shook that up when I moved down south because I brought a lot of my family down with me too. So that changed up stuff quite a bit, but that's why a lot of this stuff, really resonates with me. I grew up listening to blues, rockabilly, all that stuff. And I think it is the music for the people, all kinds of people, because it's just, it's honest, it's real, and it just touches everybody. But yeah, that part of the globe, yeah, the Chicago area, Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin, that whole little U there around the Great Lakes, like they're, man. And I have a lot more places to go too, but that seems to be a place where I really love to dig into.
There's some great blues in Chicago.
Yeah.
Great clubs there.
Yeah, man.
And you can go to places where there's 5 people sitting in, and it's just a kick-ass 3-piece just tearing it up.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Yeah, I got to...
I don't know how to make it practical, but, in London, they love anything American. And so something like what you're doing, they would just go crazy. You just have to get over being cussed at and spit on.
Yeah.
Once you get past that, man.
Yeah, they can be a little surly, man. Some of those UK guys, like especially when it comes to rockabilly, there's some purists out there. And if if you don't have the correct pants on, the correct hair, you're not, the exact tone, they're going to tell you about it. And you just got to roll the punches, man. That's how it is. I mean, I'm pretty familiar with that. Again, the blue collar, life is quite a bit of that kind of deal. Working at mills, and I'm ex-military as well, and just I've always been around that kind of judgmental kind of, well, you should do it like this, and well, that's not the real thing. This is the real thing, and all that. I grew up with all that kind of stuff, so it doesn't really bother me. I'm really familiar with it, and that. It doesn't really. I don't really care. I'm still gonna do. I'm pretty stubborn, so I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, no matter what anybody says.
Yeah.
But UK is definitely a place I'd love to go. The problem is right now is how difficult it is to go out there and play. You need an actual certificate of sponsorship to play over there now, which pretty much means is you need somebody to vouch for you to say it's almost like a work visa.
Yeah.
So you need somebody to vouch for you, and they want to know like the dates you're playing. They want to know everything, when you come into customs. Otherwise, man, if they catch you, they can kick you out and they could ban you from going there.
Huh.
So that's something I don't want to mess up. I want to make sure I do that correctly. I
Yeah.
do have some friends that like go over there and they're on vacation and all that kind of deal.
Yeah.
But I'm not risking getting caught like that. That's definitely, I see a future in that place because of that exact reason, and I'm trying to do it correctly. And I'm trying to get over there right now. I got
Now, do you do all that yourself, or do you have like representation in terms of booking your stuff or trying to get overseas?
right now it's just me.
Yeah.
I was trying to find somebody to help out with booking, but then I kept hitting walls with that. There's a paradox where booking agencies want you to not need them before they want you.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So when you when you need them, it's like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, well, you're not to the level that we want, so we're making enough money. But then when you get to that level, you don't need them, and they're like, oh, we want you now. Well, I don't need you now. Like
Yeah.
I'm not coughing up 20%,
Yeah.
per show. So I decided when I went to Nashville that at least for the time being, I went to Nashville for music business and audio engineering, and left with those skills to kind of start my own label and do everything myself.
Yeah.
And as of now, I'm still doing it myself. However, the door is open to an opportunity. If something comes in and it presents itself for us to boost the next level, I'm totally ready for that. But it is in some ways a smaller headache doing the booking myself. In some ways, booking itself is a whole nother
A lot of
animal.
work. Yeah.
Mm.
It is.
Yeah,
man.
you would
It
know.
is.
You would
Yeah.
know.
It's the struggle is real. I mean, it's like it's
Yeah.
everything that goes into, from the music to the booking to the gear to the sound to setup to breakdown to keeping everybody happy to marketing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's everything.
this is where I get on my soapbox and talk about live performers. I will never walk into a room with someone playing live music and not put some money in that can,
Yeah.
because the amount of work that either it's an individual or a band has put into just that 1 3-hour set that they're doing
Yeah.
is extraordinary.
Yeah.
It is.
And
man, it is.
just like you would get back to the booking thing, the calls that I've had more people reach out to me, venues, say, "Hey, give me 5 dates in the next year," and I'll give those 5 dates within 3 minutes, and then I don't hear anything for a month.
Yeah.
And then you ping them back, "Hey, did you get this one? Make sure you got the." You don't hear anything. Then you hear back 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times, and then finally they come back and they ask for 5 dates you didn't give them.
Yeah, man, all the time. It's
And
very
it
frustrating.
gets frustrating, and I get that people are busy. I get it. For a lot of them, it's not their primary thing either. Sometimes they've been tasked with, they work at this venue and they've been tasked with booking the talent as well.
Absolutely.
But it is a constant. It's a never-ending. Almost, I would say I probably spend 3 to 4 hours a day just on band stuff of some capacity.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's a lot of work, and yeah, it's been great because it's taught me a lot of patience.
Yeah.
I've never actually traditionally been a patient person. I've always been very impatient and very just kind of pile through. It's forced me to really take a step back. And yeah, that's been a huge key factor too, is just seeing things from other people's perspective.
Right.
Is that, this guidebook in this venue is getting hit by everybody and their mother
Everybody. Yep.
every day. And, you got to be able to stand out. You got to be able to create that bond, that relationship, that personal connection with that person,
Right.
an authentic, genuine one, because people know too. Like if you're being inauthentic, they know,
Oh, yeah.
subconsciously.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's just tough. It's a game of personalities, it's a game of, just persistence. But then again, I'm a very self-conscious person. I've always been a very self-dependent kind of person. So it's always been tough too, because I've always never wanted to be the person to bother anybody either.
Right.
I'm always kind of like, well, I put it there, and if you don't want it, that means you won't want it. But that's not necessarily what it is. So it's like I had to learn
fine
a
line.
little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit of persistence, just a little bit, just to check in. But after like time 2 or 3, it's like I'm not beating a dead horse. It's like I'm gonna move on, And that's that's really tough too, because like when I first started getting hardcore and doing this full time, this is post-COVID. So when everybody else was like, oh, hey, dialing back because of COVID and all that, my dumb ass decided to, hey, I'm going to do full-blown, full-time music right after COVID, right?
We'll call you Mr. Timing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, the timing was not good for that, but the heart timing was for me. It was Well, what made me actually go into that is I was actually working at a rigging company. I was doing construction, working, lifting cranes. I was a welder for this company, so did a lot of the welding and all that. And they actually ended up cutting back our hours quite a bit, and because just of like COVID and all that. And I did the math, and one day I was just got so frustrated, just sitting around doing nothing, and they're giving us nonsense tasks to do, just to burn time, just to give. I mean, they're just trying to help us out. They're trying to get us paid, to make sure that we're doing something to get paid. But it was like so disheartening. And I remember sitting down and thinking, like, man, if I did full-time music, I'd be making the same amount of money as I am right now doing this.
Yeah.
I just need to go ahead and do that. So it took about a year for me to work up the courage to finally pull the trigger on it and say, okay, I'm done. And it had to do with like a lot of the work circumstances going on, stuff like that, changes of management. It's always stressful, and then the conditions and all that stuff. So I ended up just putting down my foot and saying, okay, I'm done. I'm done working. I'm going to full-time do music. I dove 100% into it. And it's just like they say not to do this. I don't recommend doing this, because you shouldn't have your passion your full-time gig, because that kind of stuff starts getting to you. Like when you're not booking shows, like that stress, that fear. I have 3 kids and a mortgage, man.
Right.
It's like having that over my back was just totally, and it actually, it kind of, I felt like I was getting needy at that point, because I was like, hey man, like, when are we going to do that? Oh, they didn't hear anything back, and I'm getting my own head into it. It's just, so it started getting really hard. And then I kind of like one day, well, actually not one day, it took a very long time to kind of like back off that and just know that, just trust in, if I just keep doing this and I just keep trusting and putting the work in on myself, that it's going to start coming through.
Yeah.
And then I started kind of doing that, and it started working. I started seeing results. And now it's like I finally feel I'm in a pretty comfortable pocket where I'm not like, freaking out if I don't have a gig. But I'm comfortable enough to be able to not be in a fight or flight mode when I'm talking to a club owner or a booking agent or something like that. It's a very difficult, scary thing, man.
Yeah, I was having this conversation actually with someone, a friend of mine, Sunday. We were at a show, and I've never worked for anybody else my entire life. 6 months of my life I worked for somebody else, and that was it.
Oh wow.
And so I know that world, right? And there's an old saying, an entrepreneur never has a plan B, right? Because you got to make plan A work. If you have a plan B, you'll not necessarily follow. You'll not put everything into it. But there's a real fine line in what you're saying. If you get into fight or flight, then desperation comes in. Yeah. And the old saying is, when desperation walks in the door, stupid ideas are right behind it.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so he was talking to me the same thing. He said, I've been. He's in his late 40s. So my business was going really well, and then COVID came, and it kind of slowed down, and then we had a good year, but now it's going down again. I'm really nervous. I got a kid. I got more. Same things. Yeah. And I said, it took me a while, and I was probably in my mid-40s, because I was the same way. Every day was like swim upstream and fight. And then one day I kind of realized I made it this far. I got to trust that no matter what happens, I have the skills to come out of it. You use that term, trust yourself. Yeah. And I think that's when you reach that point of belief, that it's one thing when you're 22 and you haven't done shit yet and you're scared to death and you don't know if you can do shit. Yeah. Well, when you get to a certain point, you say, I've weathered a lot of stuff. Sure. It's not going to be easy, but I trust that I can figure it out. And that, to me, was the turning point, was the trust factor. And I think that's where you're at now when you say, okay, I might go through a little bit of a dry spell. I might have to work harder. I might have to make a few more phone calls. It won't be automatic, but I trust that I will know the path to take to get me through this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trust in there, man. That's what keeps it going. Yeah, you're right. And you make some pretty dumb decisions, like when you have that over your head all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like I put myself in a lot of bad positions because of that kind of deal. I've played a lot of clubs that I probably shouldn't have played. Yeah. I've had people in the band I probably shouldn't have had in the band, and it's just out of that fear that it's like, well, if I lose this person, then what am I going to do? I'm going to have to start all over again. I'm going to have to try to find somebody else. I'm going to have to do this and that. And then I remember actually quite recently, like 2 years ago, I had to get another player in the band. And, it was the final line where it's like, look, I got so fed up and I dealt with just so much stuff that I just didn't care anymore. It's like, whatever happens, happens. I don't care,
Yeah.
So the player left the band. I didn't know what to do. I had a tour coming up with Hillbilly Casino. Actually, I had Ronnie Crutcher, my friend I was telling you about, was the first kind of deal that we played together on. And this is a big deal to me. This is like we're playing multiple cities around the Southeast. It was traditionally something that a year or two before that I probably would have been like sweating over. I would have been like losing sleep and freaking out and really stressing out over. And I just kind of got to that point, the maturity kicked in and just the experience of just like the BS. You get kind of like numb to it after a while, and you're just like, I'll make it work no matter what.
Yeah.
And funny enough, like a day later, I got a random call out of nowhere from this guy out in Nashville that played bass, and he came out and was playing me for about a year after that, So it's just, as soon as you kind of just give up and just let it go, it's like it just comes to you after that.
It's kind of crazy how that works.
It's nuts.
And, I mean, Alan's known me for a while now. Alan and I are close friends, and I can get really woo-woo and into all this, energy shit and all that, because I really believe there's something there that we can't necessarily comprehend, quantify, understand. And I think there's something to that. I found I was the same way. I was very intense when I was younger, and if things didn't go exactly the way I thought they should go, it really, I'd get really uptight about it, and why isn't this working out? And the more I learned to let go, the more things started happening.
Yeah.
And, I of course start to wonder, is it mystical, magical forces, or who knows? Or is it just that when you let go, you recognize more, you see more, you see opportunities that you might not have seen before.
Yeah.
And suddenly these things come to you that you might have just missed because you had blinders on. You were so focused on going this way, you didn't see that there were these other options that you could take. And I'm a huge believer in that when you kind of just let things, and you got to be really careful, because it's not ignoring it. It's not saying, oh, I just won't, oh, fuck it, if I don't pay the water bill, someone will. Well, no, they'll shut your water off.
Right, yeah, they will, yeah.
But, but if you're a little bit low that week, and instead of being up all night worried about how am I going to pay the water bill, take a deep breath, simmer. You'll figure it out. You've got the ability. Something will present itself that you can then take advantage of. So it's not sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
But it's also not blinding yourself with such fear, worry, desperation, whatever it is, that you don't see the option come to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that.
100%, yeah.
And that's, our band that's the way our band happened. Very organic. It wasn't like we got to find this person, we got to find that person. We found people that worked well together, that loved each other, that the energy was right, and just had faith that would be the right formula.
Absolutely.
And whatever it is, if we don't know how to play it, or I don't know how to play it, oh well, I'll figure it out, or maybe this person will play it, or we'll find a way. It's not the end of the world if we don't, if we don't have all the answers right away. And it's been really that's been huge for us.
Yeah.
Huge for us.
So do you record in Nashville?
No, actually, I record here for the most part. I have a small, like 10 by 10 bedroom in my house. I do the majority of my recording at, but we also do some recording over at Big Animal Studio. That's Eric Bass's studio from Shinedown over there in James Island. Usually, I try to get drums in a room like that.
Yeah.
Although Just Go Baby, we didn't do that there. We did it in another location. But no, I stay local with that. It's just more economical. I can't really afford to go to Nashville all the time.
Yeah.
I wish, but yeah, I mean, like you said, like nowadays you have the resources to do it pretty much anywhere. It's fairly inexpensive to download Pro Tools and have a couple of good mics and put up a couple of baffles and stuff, and then you're good to go.
Yep.
As long as you got a good mixing engineer and a good mastering engineer, that's why I learned to rely on.
Do you do now? Do you hire out for that, or do you do your own engineering?
I do now. I used to do all my own engineering, mixing, mastering myself. I mean, I was, quite a bit of a rookie at it. I'm not going to pretend I was any kind of pro at that. I went to school for it, but it was a total 9-month school. Yeah. So it's kind of crash course. It's like a tech school almost. They give you all the essentials, and then you just kind of run with it if you want to. And I did. I was like a sponge. I soaked it all up. And actually, because I wasn't actually going to I was actually moving more towards being in the studio or doing something else in the music industry. I didn't quite convince myself I could do this on my own yet until I remember one day I'm sitting behind the console recording this band. There was this bluegrass band. They're called Ray Cardwell. I still keep in contact with this guy. He plays for Dave Mason now. Actually, he's a bass player. Tours all the world with this guy. But he had his band in there, and I remember the fun they were having on the other side of the glass. And I remember sitting on the other side. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong side of the glass, man. I need to be over there. So anyway, I still took all that and moved it here. So my first record, I did all my own mixing, and I tried to. There's this one particular video I found on YouTube. This guy, he calls it making vintage music in the box, which that means it's like in like a digital, a DAW or
Right.
Sure.
digitally. So I watched this video like excruciating slow, like minute by minute. I rewatch, go back through and see how he's EQing the bass and how he's EQing everything to get that kind of vintage sound. And I don't think my version, I don't think came out anything like his at all. But it was like at the time, I think it was like that paradox when you mix your own music and you listen to it so many times, you start to really stop hearing things,
Yeah.
and you can overproduce, you can overdo stuff.
And there's so much to it. I was at are you familiar with Omar's studio on Johns Island? Have you ever heard of that? I don't even know if it's still there, but I've been there a couple of times. And it like you would be recording downstairs, and up in the loft, that's where the engineer was. And I was up there on the couch, I waiting for my part or something, and I see this book that says Recording the Beatles. And I was like, oh, this will be good. And it's all schematics and amp placement and all this technical all this technical stuff. And I'm thinking, wow, there is actually this other world to recording. It's, I just see it from my side. And you were just talking about, how there are those two sides. But the book was like, an inch and a half thick. And I think it was written by, who was the guy that did, his name escapes me, but they had one engineer that worked with them.
Yeah, man, what's his name? Yeah, famous engineer. I'm so bad with names, man, especially in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with George Martin, but
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking of George
driving
Martin.
home, his
Yeah.
name
I'm
will
blanking
come
on
to
that
me.
too. Yeah, it's like sitting right on the tip of my tongue. Yeah.
But anyway, it was that guy.
Yeah. It's so funny.
Well-
It's like they had all these rules like in recording in the 50s, and then like the Beatles broke all these rules and then rewrote new rules for everybody to
yeah.
follow.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, of course, like you said, there are some laws that you can't really get around. There's just
Tune your
certain things.
guitar.
Yeah, tuning your guitar. It's just I mean, then you got like purists like punk and blues guys are like all the untuned guitars are what made it
Yeah.
real too. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, there's some some definitive things, at least in my own opinion, that it's like some things you can't break rules, but there's so many different ways to do stuff, man. I mean, you look at Frank Zappa, the way he did stuff, and just like these really obscure, weird ways, but that's what made it his,
Right.
that's what gave that signature sound. Like, Stevie Ray Vaughan, like when you hear him hit the first note on the guitar, that's Stevie Ray Vaughan, It's like that's what makes each artist stand out, and that's something I really have been really diving deep in when it comes to like branding, marketing, but not just as an image, but with the music itself.
Yeah.
Is like having that, like, that's me,
Yep.
that's Jared Petteys, that's that signature kind of thing that people know it's me. It's not like a scratch your head like, oh, is it this bird?
Yeah.
That's important. Very
Like,
important.
when it's Boston.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
that's
mean,
extremely important.
And that's any type of branding, right? It's like
It
trying
is,
to,
yeah.
whether you're a company, whether you're a musician, whether you're, whatever you are, you're trying to create something that people will recognize and associate with you right away.
Absolutely.
And that
yeah.
in music is so difficult because there's so many people out there. So how do you separate yourself from that? And part of it is just naturally, right?
Yeah.
No matter how hard I try, I could work for 10,000 hours a month, and I'm never going to sound like Stevie Ray. I'm just not. It's just
No.
not. No one is. And so how do you got to take what is yours naturally and then find a way to sort of bring that up to a spot where people, like you say, recognize it and say, that's Jared Petteys.
Exactly.
The
yeah.
look, the sound, all of it. It all works together, I think. It's all
Yeah.
a piece of it, yeah.
It's something I wish more artists paid attention to, like on my level, or kind of like at the stage I'm at right now, because I feel like a lot of people kind of leave this by the wayside. They focus on the music, and they think that's it.
Yeah.
They think like, well, the great, a basketball player, for instance. Let's say a basketball player, they can sit there and shoot the 3-point shot all day long, and they get really good at doing that one thing.
Right.
But that's not what makes them the greatest in the world, right?
Right.
They gotta do offense, defense.
pass.
They
They
gotta
gotta do
have
all-
their
yeah.
mentality, their training, their diet, their sleep habits. You know, there's all this stuff that goes into it. And I feel like from the surface, from the outside looking in, people see just the music. They think it's what it is.
Right.
And I feel like that's why a lot of people that have some great music, they're hitting this brick wall because they're not an identity yet.
Yeah.
You know, they're not finding what's setting them apart from anybody else yet. And that's when it starts to really pick up momentum because it's like, it's easy to find. It stands out. And that's something that I really have been diving into quite a bit this past like year or so. And still I'm constantly trying to find that, you know, that spot, that exact precise aim small, miss small, you know,
Yeah.
that one little spot. And what I found is the easiest thing for this kind of deal is look outside music, actually. To look at all your other influences, like what kind of movies did you like when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Like what kind of food do you like? What kind of places do you like? What is your, you know, your mentality when it comes to this? And there's so many ways to go with this, man, because we're all so different, and that's what makes it so authentic and so pinpointed is that you're the only person that has all those combined things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can pull that all together and market that as yourself or your band or, you know, whatever your project is, you know, I'm just speaking for myself when it comes to the individual because that's kind of how I base everything else.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a band, when it comes to, there's people that base it off like a friendship, you know, there's like two people and it's kind of like their story together, you know,
Yeah.
Sonny and Cher, you know,
Yeah.
know, stuff like that. So it's just pinpointing everything outside the music and finding a way to pull it in. For me, the rockabilly thing is such a big thing because it's like it's the rebellion, right? So when I was a kid, I grew up quite a bit in solitude. I went to a very small school. My dad was a hardworking guy. He was out of the house quite a bit. I was raised with two younger sisters. There wasn't any kids on my block that were boys that are my age. So I was alone quite a bit, and which is why I, you know, really stuck with the guitar and all that. But everything else I was attracted to was kind of in that same realm, you know, like the old Westerns, gangster movies. You know, I had a World War II veteran live next door, so I used to spend a lot of time with him. I'd sit on his porch, and he's a really, like, one of the greatest people I've ever met. Actually, I think the greatest person I've ever met in my entire life. Huge inspiration for me. He's been through some of the hardest stuff there ever was. He was the oldest of, I think, 5 or 6 kids during the Depression. They didn't have enough money to buy shoes. They actually wore shoes without soles because they wore them out. He raised his family. His dad wasn't around. I forgot why. I don't know if he passed or what. And then they all, World War II came around. Then they all, you know, joined the service and, you know, went overseas. And he was the most humble, hardworking. But I've never heard him ever say a bad thing about anybody ever. He was such a nice, positive man influence. That's such a hard thing to find. But
Was he your inspiration to going into the military, do you think?
a big part of it, yeah. The other thing about that was when I was 7, I went to Gettysburg for the first time when I was a kid. My cousin was really big into, you know, the Civil War and history. At that time, I was into dinosaurs and Jurassic Park. That movie came out. I was super fascinated with archaeology and like dinosaurs. And then his family took me to Gettysburg, and then that all changed. Like after that, I was obsessed with the Civil War. Like I'm a huge history buff.
So were you Army?
I was Army, yeah. I
Yeah.
did 6 years Army, yeah. So yeah, the combination of those two things, and actually the history aspect is what brought me to Charleston. Is I love this area. I love the history here. I love the fact that there's palm trees growing out here.
Yeah.
There's no snow. I like until last month, but
Yeah, our big storm.
yeah, but yeah, all that stuff. It's just finding all those things and bringing it all in one. Like the gangster movies, it was like this common theme for me of the lone wolf. Like I always was attracted to the lone wolf because I was, you know, growing up. Not by choice. I really didn't want to be that way. I always felt like I was missing out on something when I was a kid. Like I said, small town. I felt like everybody else. I wasn't allowed to date when I was a kid, so I felt like everybody else was going to these parties and dating, and I wasn't allowed to like go out or nothing like that. So I was like stuck in this little box, this little cage, right? So it was always my fantasy to leave, to like get out of this town and go somewhere else where the palm trees grow and there's just all this stuff. And here I am, you know.
There you go.
But yeah, it just take everything that you like and create a storyline, right? So I'm trying to figure out where's my music set? Like where's the time frame this sets? And it's not just one place, you know. It's like a combination of like Old West meets like, you know, 1950s, early 60s motorcycle rebellion into like modern. It's got a modern touch. I don't want to be too dated. I want it to be, modern fitting clothes and stuff like that, not over fashion or anything like that, but just kind of bring a modern element where it's contemporary, that's relatable to, a modern audience, to like, kids in their 20s. Like, how can they relate to this?
Yeah.
But I think everybody can kind of relate to that kind of like rebellion, that kind of lone wolf kind of not anti-hero, but like don't play by anybody else's rules, live by your own code, that kind of deal. That's always really been a big thing for me, especially being prior military, So it's just these common themes were just really evident. It's just rounding them up and putting it all into my image, my music, Self-reflection is a big thing. That's something I started getting into in the past several years, is like, really taking a look at myself, and like my lyrics are really reflecting that now these days. Like the song "Get Out of My Own Way."
Yeah.
The song is all about like kind of seeing a hang up, this wall I keep hitting, and how to, number one, get past the fight or flight mode, like we were saying before. I feel like when I get clicked in that mode, and it's tough because I grew up in fight or flight. I grew up in that setting, very strict, hardworking family, like I said, very traditional, old school, you could say. And then the military was it's just like I easily transitioned from that into the military. It's the same kind of world. So that's kind of like how that whole world works. So kind of getting out of that frame where I was learning to trust and not being so controlling. Because I think like in that frame, like they're definitely like I had to, like things had to be a certain way. Obviously the military is like dress right dress. Your socks are folded a certain way, So getting past
Dress
that.
right dress.
Exactly,
Boy,
yeah.
I remember that.
Yep. You served as well?
I was Navy.
Oh, no kidding. Nice. Were you stationed here like in the Charleston area?
That's how I got here, yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Nice. So when did you end up getting out?
I went 81 to 86.
No kidding, yeah. So it was right before.
Were you born yet?
No, I was born in 87, one more
See?
year.
Yeah.
So your first year of freedom, that's the year I was born. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, as you know, like the military is like, it's kind of that way. You just kind of have to, you don't talk back. You don't ask questions. You just do what you're told. And that's exactly how I was raised. So it was like, well, okay, this is really familiar,
Yeah.
But coming out of that into the real world as an entrepreneur and like working for myself and doing this, it's a very different world, It's not like that at all. And there's a great deal of letting go that I had to do, a massive deal of letting go. And that's what that song I was saying was all about. It's all about just letting go and getting out of my own way, getting my ego out of the way, getting that kind of like, that kind of myself out of the way, so I can like really take a better look at what I'm doing and, the decisions I'm making and how I'm doing it. So, yeah.
And it's really interesting that you have that because, you're kind of raised in a, for lack of a better word, restrictive environment, rule-based environment, and into the Army, sort of very, very regimented. But yet something inside of you wanted to break from that.
Yeah.
So that you get that whole, nurture versus nature thing, right? And clearly the nurture part was not about being rebellious, being entrepreneurial. And rebellious, I think, gets a bad rep. Rebellious doesn't mean bad. Rebellious just means I'm going to be independent. I'm going to think for myself. I'm going to maybe not, whatever I hear, I'm not going to necessarily think is the right way. I might investigate different ways. I like the word curious better than rebellious.
Yeah.
And but somehow you had that in you. Did you have that even as like a kid, do you think, when you were younger? Or did you?
Oh, man, absolutely.
You just wanted to fucking break out.
Yeah, I want to bust free, man. Yeah. I was I felt like I was really repressed when I was like a kid.
Yeah.
I knew how to handle that kind of structure, that kind of like world, which is why I did so well when I was in the military. But yeah, man, since day one, I wanted to bust out. Like I didn't want to be told what to do. I didn't want to be told how to think or how to act or any of that. I was a pretty goofy kid. Like when I was a kid, like I was just, and I still am. Especially my kids. Like I act like a moron a lot of times with my kids because it's just fun. Make stupid faces, all that kind of stuff. And I used to get yelled at for it. My dad would like, quit making those dumb noises,
Right.
Make those stupid faces or like, what the hell are you wearing, kind of deal or something like that. So yeah, I was very kind of like, felt like I just wanted to break out. And then like, yeah, again, that structure of like, everybody else I felt like was just off doing what they wanted to do. And, I just felt like I was in this little cage, man. My bedroom was in the basement of the house. And I was for a long time the only one that lived down in the basement. I had my own kind of, it was kind of cold. I make it sound way worse than actually. My parents were like, it wasn't that bad. It was fully furnished
Sliding
out there.
bread under the door.
Yeah, stuff like that. That actually did happen a few times. Yeah, actually that did. Because like, yeah, I remember a few times I must have said something or did something my father didn't like, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, you're not eating. Go down to your room. And my mom would slip me a sandwich under the door or something like that. I remember I actually went as far as to eating leaves off a tree one time when I was really small. Same kind of deal. I must have said something my father didn't like, and he was like, get away from the table. And I was like crying, like in the woods, like eating the leaves. Oh, my parents make me eat leaves, So I was a pretty goofy kid. I was always pretty charismatic and pretty sociable, actually. But it's really funny. But yeah, just like that, the situation I was in kind of made me the other way as well.
Yeah.
So it's like something I've kind of lived between two different worlds, which is difficult. And I feel like a lot of artists feel this way too, because
Yeah.
you're kind of split between two different push and pull tugs,
Yeah.
which is where art is born. That's where
Yeah.
it is, you
Yeah.
know. So
Struggle and the pain between the two.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I think it's so normal to be, as a kid, grow up to be an artist when you were the kid that's like, I'm not like anybody.
Yeah.
It's like, wow,
yeah.
I am not like anybody. And even
Yeah.
though you might be fitting in, but like in your head, you're like, ooh, man.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, I guess from the surface, like, it's funny because from the outside world, it looks like one thing, but in our own internal world, man, it's like completely different.
Yeah.
From the outside, you probably think I fit in. I had friends in like every kind of like genre of like groups of people and stuff. But to me, I felt like a complete outsider, man. Like I didn't dress like anybody else. I didn't act like anybody else. It's really fun. Like growing up in upstate New York, I was actually really obsessed with surfing.
Yeah.
I subscribed to Surfer magazine, and I wanted to run away to San Diego and surf as a full-time surfer. I've never even surfed before in my life, and that's what I wanted to do. So I wore like Quicksilver and like Billabong and all this stuff, And yeah, man, I never quite fit in, and that's something I always liked. That I always championed that. I guess it got some sort of like attention. Early on, it always usually starts with female attention.
Yeah.
As a male, that's what we're.
Chicks and beer.
Yeah, man, you pick up a guitar and like. And I remember the first time that happened too. It was like really, man. All right, I think I was a late bloomer. I hit puberty. I think the summer before my junior year of high school. Right.
Yeah.
So everybody else, again, I was even left out when it came to maturity, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody else was growing freaking beards and all this shit. And like, I was just like still this short kind of kid, kind of pudgy, almost a little bit. And then that summer hit, and that's when I started doing like, we had the talent show, like school talent show.
Yeah.
So right around that time, I remember going to school that first day of my junior year, and girls coming up, and they're like, they didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And I knew them since like kindergarten. They're
Oh,
like,
yeah,
who are
yeah.
you? And I'm like, I'm Jared. Like, they're like,
I've been
"What?"
sitting next to you in class for 12 years.
Yeah, you're like, what? I'm like, I'm getting attended. And then that happened, and it was like, whoa, awesome.
All these years, you really didn't know I was alive.
yeah, right. Yeah, I certainly didn't feel like it. I'll tell you that, man. There's a lot of struggle around that. But yeah, young men, man, we go through a lot of stuff, don't we?
Yeah. It's a common tale though, I think, among the creatives, is you
Yeah.
always kind of felt like you didn't quite belong and
Yeah,
like where you fit in and how you fit in and I hear that from a lot of people, and I felt the same way growing up as well. I always felt just different. And I
Yeah.
had a lot of friends. It wasn't like I was some kid in the corner sitting all by myself, but I just never quite felt like I was
yeah.
with the rest of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, do you feel like you're kind of like a chameleon? Like you kind of like would shift from like one end to another, like between groups of people? Like you're.
Well, it's funny you say that, yeah, because to this day I always talk about my pockets of friends. I have like groups of friends in all different weird sort of subgenres. And high school is the same way. I could sort of go between everything, between the jocks, I was a mathlete, I was an athlete at the same time, so I could go between jocks, I could go between geeks, I could go between all different people, and I had friends in all of these different groups.
yeah.
But I always never felt like I quite belonged in any of them.
Yeah.
You
How about
know?
you? Do you feel the same way at all?
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you were talking about chameleons. I remember it brought back a memory. I must have been like 4 or 5. And behind our neighborhood, there was woods and a bunch of building materials. So we built a fort. And one kid said, okay, so now the rules. First rule, no girls. And I remember thinking, well, who wants no girls?
yeah.
Yeah. And everybody else was like, yeah, no girls. So I just like, yeah, no girls. But I'm thinking, well, you got to have girls, right?
Yeah.
What's the point of building this if we can't have girls?
I said, I know we're 4, but,
Yeah. Did you guys feel like when you're like early on you had a girl thing, like when you were like really small, like as far back as you can remember, kind of deal?
Oh, I had my
Oh, yeah.
first girlfriend at 3.
Yeah,
Her name
yep.
was Darla. Yeah.
No kidding.
And and I always was. I was always, to me. I'm a hopeless romantic anyway. I always have.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the music. Now, of course, I was stupid. I started by drumming. Okay, not the best way because all the people up front were the ones meeting the girls. And the music to me was again another avenue to sort of get in front of girls, right?
Yeah.
I moved to France because I chased a girl. I mean,
Yep.
I had all these really sort of in romanticized kind of ways. I've always been that way. And so that was always a struggle because I always kind of felt invisible to girls at the same time, like through high school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I was
yeah.
scared to fucking death to talk. I couldn't. I didn't. know
100%,
how to
man.
talk to
That's
anybody.
I was kind of the opposite. Like I always maybe it was because my oldest cousin was a girl. I don't know, but I always felt like I could talk to girls. So in junior high and high school, I had all these friends that were girls.
Oh, I was friend zoned everywhere. Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and so
Couldn't
they
get
would
out of
say,
that, though.
"Well, I don't want to date this guy," but so I had a lot of interest through my girlfriends. But I just didn't have that like awkwardness with it, probably because I'm just a goofball,
Oh man, so you were a ladies' man back then, huh?
without even really understanding that. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, as soon as you let it go, that's when it happens. That's
Yeah.
exactly how it happens. Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think for me, it started getting kind of like, I really felt very strongly. It was so petrifying going to talk to a girl. I remember I had my heart broken when I was in kindergarten, right? There was this girl. Her name was Jessica Champagne. And she had
What a name.
yeah, man, this cute little girl is long, straight, blonde hair, blue eyes, super sweet. I've always been a sucker for the sweet ones, the ones that just had that killer personality that are just like super nice. And she was, right? But there was this other little boy that also thought that, and she thought it'd be okay to date us, as kindergartners, date us both at the same time. And I'm not that kind of guy, right? And I'm just like, well, no, it's either me or him. I'm not going to play this game. I'm not competing with anybody, either like me or that's it, right? And I weaned myself out of that. So I think I started this mistrust like a little early or whatnot. But yeah.
Scorned in kindergarten.
Yeah, man. Yeah, my heart busted
the
up.
soul
man.
of a woman was created below.
Yeah, man. That's how it happens, man. Yup. Yeah, and it actually carried up until like about high school, man. I didn't have actually my first full blown girlfriend until I was in the Army when I was 18.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wasn't actually allowed to date that much. I guess it was semi-religious, like the background I'm from. I mean, I was raised in like Northern Baptist, and my grandparents are super strict on that, like fire, brimstone, like straight up, like this is what it is. Any other thing else, like you're going to hell. Pretty much just like how it was.
Yeah.
So I kind of always had that kind of in the back of my head and all that. But my parents didn't really quite sit there, but the principles were still there.
Right.
But yeah, I just kind of made things even worse. So like when I went to go like talk to a girl, and there was actually a couple girls that I was like friends with, that there was like definitely interest going on between the two of us. But I just never wanted. I didn't know how to like say anything, and I just couldn't. I didn't like know how to handle rejection if it even came my way. So I didn't even attempt, man.
I had a huge fear of rejection.
Yeah.
I had no game. So,
Yeah.
and all my best friends throughout life have always been female. Even as an adult, I've always had tons of female friends.
Yeah.
But as a teenager, I had no idea how to move that. You basically had to put a sign in front of me that said, "I dig you. I'd like you to ask me out," before I'd have the balls to even ask you
Yeah,
out.
same here.
Because I had
yeah.
this tremendous fear of, well, why would this person like me? I'm just some fucking geeky kid. And
Exactly. Yeah.
they're not, and now I'm going to feel like shit now because they say no, and I'm going to be embarrassed, and everyone in the world's going to know it. I had this like narrative going on in my head,
Yeah.
It was really, really hard to overcome that. I can't believe I actually got married eventually because I don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, man. Same thing here. I remember I buckled down at one point. At one point when I was like, I think again that same year, I was junior year in college. I didn't go to college. High school. And I buckled down. I'm like, I need to figure this out. Like, I need to figure out how to do this because there's no freaking way I'm going to continue to go about. Because, yeah, what ended up happening is, like, I hit puberty and I was getting more female attention, but it was even worse now because I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So it's like now they're coming up and it's like almost like they were taunting me. They'd come up and kind of poke fun at me because they knew I wasn't going to do anything.
Yeah.
And they'd really like lay it on thick. And I just didn't know what to do. I got so nervous and just kind of like, I felt like I was going to explode from the inside out, man. I'm like, I don't know what to do, man. But yeah, they would have fun with that. Actually, the song "Just Go Baby" is about that same exact thing.
I was just
So-
thinking about these experiences, how they're coming out in your songs now.
Yeah. So "Just Go Baby" is about the exact same thing. It's about having like somebody that catches your eye, and you're like you have that instant kind of attraction to, and they have it to you, and they kind of know it, but then you kind of put the wall up. You're like, but wait a minute, are you the kind of person that's gonna like use me? Are you gonna like break my heart? You do this stuff, and you kind of have that level of kind of pushing them away a bit, but then you're having that internal struggle, that battle, and that's exactly what the song's about because that was a common thing, for me growing up, and thank God I got past all that.
Well, and it's so funny because if you look at it logically, you say to yourself, it's really not a big deal. Like
No,
if I
it's
ask this
not.
girl out and she says no, okay. But somehow in your world, you build up this whole thing that this is going to be the most devastating, awful thing that you'll never recover from. It really is.
Yeah.
But you just can't. I couldn't break through that for some reason.
It's fight or flight, yeah.
Yeah.
You feel like you're about to
Yeah.
go in front of the firing squad every time you go and talk to somebody.
Now,
yeah,
on
at
the
least for
flip
me.
side, put me on stage in front of 10,000 people. Not
Yeah.
a fear in the world.
It makes no sense, does
Right?
it?
Exactly.
I don't get it.
Put me, I was a college athlete. Put me, no fear of any of that, like
Yeah.
none. But boy, ask that girl out. Fuck.
You know what's really getting to me these days? Like, so recently this year, I started doing like these semi-daily. I started out doing daily, but I started to figure out that like quickly that it's like not really feasible to like do. I mean, it is. That's something I'm trying to work towards. But shooting videos, so I've been shooting like reels for social media recently, and I'm fairly consistent about it. That is so tough to me, man. Like,
Yeah.
being by myself in front of a camera with myself and my own thoughts and all that, like that's
Yep.
the worst thing. I don't understand how I can like be on a stage and not even think about any of that. It's like I just click right into it. As soon as I get on stage, plug in, hit the first note, it's like I'm off.
Yep.
But in front
you're
of
in
a
your
camera,
space.
man.
That's all, because you're in your space.
Yeah, by yourself. Like, so, on the news or whatever, it doesn't bother me because there's
Yeah.
other people there. Like, here doesn't bother me. But if I'm by myself and I got a camera in front of me, especially now that I'm trying to really focus on having, cool locations behind me, it's part of the branding
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
process. So I'm trying to find these cool places that kind of fit my brand, right? So the outlaw kind of like background where there's like a old barn in the background or there's an old rusty car. or
Railroad with a
whatnot.
cigar box guitar one. Yeah, that stuff
Exactly.
I
like that is
saw
really
you
cool,
with the
yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
blue-green Chevy truck, man. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Might
it's
have
my
been-
truck, man. Yeah.
Is that
Oh, yeah?
right?
Yeah, it's mine, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's bad.
I
Yeah,
got
she
one
needs some work,
downstairs
though,
that you
but-
can take a shot on. Anytime you
Oh,
want,
yeah?
anytime you want to do a video in that one, you can do it. We'll
Oh,
take
that'd
a
be
look
killer.
afterwards,
I might
yeah.
do this after that. After this, yeah. But yeah, that's so tough, man. Especially in those settings too, because so yesterday I actually went out and tried to find some locations. I'm like, I got to get some cool stuff.
Yeah.
I was just doing inside my studio, and it starts getting monotonous. But then, like I said, with the brand, I'm trying to dig in these. Where would the brand Jared Petteys and Headliners be? Where would the outlaw rebel kind of, but like the self-reflecting person be? So I started looking for locations randomly, hopped in my car and started driving around like the Monk's Corner Cross area, trying to find something secluded. And it's kind of nerve-wracking in some of these places because I found this one abandoned house that I shot in front of yesterday. And you don't know if you're going to get confronted by
Someone
people.
come out with a shotgun,
Don't-
right?
yeah, you don't know, man. Like there wasn't any signs. There's no trespassing signs or anything like that anywhere. There wasn't anything like that. But it's like there's always in the back of your mind, like, man,
Yeah.
somebody might, not be so, happy that I'm here doing this, or they're wondering what the hell I'm doing. So that makes it even worse. I'm like, I put this camera on by myself, and actually, well, I say that's actually a little better than sitting in the room by myself. I rather almost confront getting shot at than being by myself in a room when it's completely quiet because
Yeah.
there's something so vulnerable about it.
I
My own
can't.
head.
If I try to do a video, give me a guitar and put a camera in front of me and just sing a song. 20 takes to get it
Oh,
right.
dude, it's so hard. Yeah.
Now just like go on stage and play the song. Okay, fine.
yeah, it's so
Now
crazy.
that being said, solo to me in general is always. I just started doing solo stuff like in the last year because people have been asking me to do it, And I told Alan the reason I even started doing it, and when I first started doing it, I talked to him about it. I said, I'm terrified to do it for some reason. I've gotten too comfortable inside the band. So I have to go do solo stuff now because I have this thing that if I don't want to do something, I have to do it.
And you're crushing it.
But it was terrifying in the beginning. And I'm like, why is this like so? Why do I feel I've spoken in front of massive crowds. I've played in bands in front of big crowds. Somehow, just me and a guitar, I'm naked now. It's just me. And it took me a while to kind of get past that. And it's the same, I think it's when you got that camera sitting there, you're not in your element anymore. You're in a different environment. And it's just not, it's not you on stage. It's not you with your band. It's not you, even like you said, in an abandoned house where you're worried about other stuff. You in a room with a camera, it's just a different thing.
Yeah, it's just you're just left to your own mental devices, man, and that's the scariest shit. Like the stuff that goes in your head, your own self-judgment is the worst place to be. Yeah. And that's I ran into the same thing playing solo. It's like you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
You're there in front of people, and most likely in a solo setting, it's in a place where people aren't clapping, right?
Correct.
So that's like the
and
weird
that's
thing
even worse
too.
because you're used to having some feedback.
Yeah, so then you stop, and then there's like, oh man,
did they like
must,
it?
Yeah, they
Do
must
I
think I
suck?
suck, right?
Exactly. Now, luckily for me, the first few gigs I went to, people like Alan, friends of mine would come, and that really helped me. And it was really touching too, because I had some friendly faces I could sort of lock into and feel like, okay, I'm not just playing to a room of people who are just I'm a radio, and that definitely helped me get over the hump having that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's something I will say to musicians out there. Like it speaks volumes to be well-rounded in every way, shape, and form when it comes to everything. Like play every kind of show you can play. Play the worst places you can play.
Oh, we do that.
I do that without a choice, man. It just happens anyway.
Quite often, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes you that much better of a musician, man. Like,
really does.
there's a lot of bands I play with that are really big, and they're kind of like at that point now where they're used to playing really good sounding places, really good engineers.
Yeah.
And then when they hit a situation where there's like a sound issue or something like that, it's like they kind of break down. They really freak out, To me, it's like, oh, business as usual. I'm used to playing some shit place right here. I mean, they're all great, but like what I mean is like the sound situation or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times I can't hear when I'm playing or singing, man, and that's just kind of common,
Yep.
So now when there's a situation on a big stage, it's like nothing.
Yeah.
I played I just played Windjammer a couple of weekends ago. Right. And the guitar cut out. Like you couldn't hear the guitar coming out of the house anymore. I was just going off from the amp, and then you got the crowd noise, you got everything else going on.
Right.
So I just kept on going, and my friend afterwards, he's like, your guitar cut out, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I couldn't hear your guitar at all. Were you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, but I couldn't understand because there's people standing in front and they're still rocking, and it was like at one of the biggest parts of the show too.
Yeah.
I was playing slide guitar, and I'm like, really getting into it in people's faces and all that. But luckily, where they were standing, they could hear the amp noise still.
Right.
But he was like freaking out for me. He's like, they couldn't hear you, right? I'm like, that's just how it goes. You can't control that stuff,
Live music, man.
You got to roll with it.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
We've had everything.
Yeah, it does. You get fights breaking out. You get all kinds of stuff. You get the the requests. Of course, that's a big thing now. And we don't do a whole lot of requests. I pretty much stick because actually, funny enough, man. I'm not a musician's musician, really. To be honest, like I always just really dug into like whatever really perked my ear.
Yep.
And it's always been really specific, which is probably what landed me where I am. But it's like everything out there, I didn't really gain my interest. It's like whatever this, and like I said, it's always an ever changing kind of deal. But that makes it tough in a situation nowadays because I feel like there's a lot of tribute bands and cover bands nowadays, and the 20-year-olds that are coming up now, they think that's what live music is. Right. So they think every band is a cover band. So it's like, well, play this song. Right. Oh, do you play Lady Gaga? And I'm like, you hear what we're playing right now?
That's always the most fascinating one to me. And it's funny you bring that up because I've always been very self-conscious about that. I'm the same way. I'm not one that can just pull 1,000 songs out of my ass and start playing them because I know them by heart. And a lot of musicians I know, they can do that. Say, hey, let's just play this one. They all know it. And I'm like, can you tell me what the chords are? I don't know. I know the song, but I don't know how it's. And
so what he's done, you can continue after this.
Yeah.
I got to say this. what he's done is he's developed a system where someone would say, "Hey, can you play blah blah blah?" And he'll say, "Yes, we're going to do that right now." And then we play a completely different song that we were going to play, and he would say, "That's our version of it."
Yep. Yeah. You know what? We've done that before too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It works, man.
And
It
it's
works.
it's true, and you're right. You'll be playing, and when we put our set, one of the cool things about our band is that it's very, everyone's very engaged, and everyone has a say, and and even in terms of the set list, we're bouncing. I generally put them together, but people say, hey, what if we do this here and that there, and because this will make more sense to follow that one. So it's very interactive that way. When we put a set list together, it kind of has a reason and a pattern of why we're playing certain songs.
Yeah.
And you'll get someone come up and say, we do almost no country. We might do a couple things that kind of touch on it a little bit, or some more country pop stuff, but they'll come up and say, hey, can you do Johnny Cash?
Yeah.
But you hear, we just literally played Bruno Mars. You think we're going to follow that with Johnny Cash? It's just,
Yeah.
it's not what we do, and I'm really sorry, but
Yeah.
we're not that. That's just not who we are. And
Sure.
it always amazes me when you get that request. I'm like, are you listening to what we're playing?
Yeah, man. It's so common nowadays. And I think it's just a product of COVID, really.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what happened is like these bars started opening back up. And, these newly drinking age individuals came out and they only knew what they knew on the radio.
Yeah.
So they thought this was like, well, okay, live band. Oh, I know a song. You should know the song.
Right.
I had one guy one time actually get pretty upset that we didn't play one of these songs.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, but you're a musician. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a musician, but I play. I'm like, you know how many songs there are out there in the world, man?
Yeah.
Like, it's impossible for anybody to know them all. And let alone me, because I am not that. There are some people that are like super talented when it comes to that.
Oh, yeah.
They can hear something once and they know the lyrics. I'm not a lyric person, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah. I
It
struggle with
takes
that.
me several practices to get comfortable to even get on the stage and even in a practice setting where it's like, in front of a few people where it's not like a big audience or anything like that. It takes me a while to get to that point and get that comfortability because I feel so, like, again, I still have the inner perfectionist in my head that I'm like constantly trying to just shove back, but I'm just not really that talented, to be honest, when it comes to that kind of deal. I can't do that. Some guys, like I said, are just like photographic memory and they can
It's
spit
amazing.
out anything, man. And it's just, they don't care if they mess up the words, they're just like fluent and that's fantastic. I wish I was more like that, but I am not that kind of person.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's impossible. Somebody asked me to do that. I'm like, but I don't know that, man.
Yep.
I can't,
Yep.
I don't know what that is.
Exactly the same. And I struggled with it. I was really self-conscious about it. And that's where I came up with that. What Alan told you about. I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to say yes, and we're going to play whatever we want. I'm going to make a joke out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I make a joke out of it, okay, now I can sort of push aside the part that goes, oh, I guess I should know that song, but I really don't. And,
I had one of my bass players once. We had a show in Kansas, and someone requested a song, and we were just about to play a couple of Ramones songs. And my bass player, he sang those songs, right? So he was like, "Oh yeah, we know that song," and he just started slipping in the lyrics to the other song into the Ramones songs, and then my
Yeah.
drummer started throwing in like another song on top of that show in the background. I'm like, what? I thought it was great. It was totally off the wall and totally spontaneous. It was great.
yeah.
But yeah, that's another thing. Like if you just I know that one. Just play the song you're about to do and then slip in some of the words around
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Good way around it.
Emmerich. His name's Emmerich. The engineer.
Oh.
Rick Emmerich.
Oh.
Rick.
Oh, okay, for the Beatles.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It just popped in my head.
No kidding.
Somebody,
Yeah.
Emmerich.
Yep.
Jeff Emmerich.
Jeff Emmerich. Okay.
That's who wrote that book.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Gotcha.
Scott can like edit that.
We'll loop it back.
And
Yeah,
put
loop
it
it-
right
yeah.
back in.
Yeah.
So it makes it
One
seem
of those,
like
one of
just
those really,
That's
one of those
right.
really awkward cut moments.
Yeah.
that
Jeff Emmerich.
It's like he's got a completely different shirt on.
Exactly. I had a friend of mine did a really great video yesterday about he's a guitar player, and David George Sink. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
He was scheduled to come in here, and then we had a conflict. He's going to come back in, but he can really tear it up.
Yeah.
He did this great video. I think it was just yesterday. He said, "Now I've been seeing a lot of videos out there, people playing stuff, and then they're actually producing. They're going and fixing all the stuff afterwards, so it looks like it's perfect." He goes, "But I'm a raw player. I don't care about mistakes. I'm just going to play this for you live. No editing, no cuts." And then it cuts. He's wearing a completely different shirt. He said, "This is just a lighting change. I did not change my shirt." And then he turns on, I forget what it was. It might have been like some Eddie Van Halen lick or something. And he's just kind of holding his guitar and not even moving. And then he starts like moving his body a little bit, but he's not, clearly it's a completely, bullshit.
Oh man, I see
And
that
just
one. I got
so
to check that
it
one
was
out.
really funny. It was really creative. And
Oh,
then he's
man.
tapping and he's doing all this stuff, but it's not at all what's being played.
No kidding.
It's just kind of a fun spoof on that whole. You get these crazy weird cuts of people doing stuff that they're trying to pass off as being authentic.
Yeah, I know, and it works the opposite way too. I actually, so since I started doing what I do is I'll take my camera off the phone and I'll extract the audio off it and I'll put it in Pro Tools to get it to play through a small speaker. So I try to get it to sound as best as I can from a phone.
Yeah.
Right, because like if you have like a full mix, you're not going to hear a lot of it through a phone because the speaker's so small.
Right.
So I try to give it a little production value just to make it sure my audience knows that I'm putting the time and effort to make it kind of like as not polished because it's not like fake or by any means. It's all me actually playing guitar in front of the camera. But if I can pull out some mud so you can hear it better,
Clean it up.
or if I can like kind of tweak the coloring so it's a little brighter so it doesn't look so dark and dingy so it catches your eye a little easier when you're scrolling. Like those little things, I'll do stuff like that. But I did this video and I'm kind of flattered because it was actually Pride and Joy by C. Ray Vaughan. I did it on a Gretsch. And this guy said something like, "Oh, like if you want to, fake it, man, you need to like do a little better like editing or something like that." I was using like iMovie, which I'm still trying to work the kinks out. There's no precise way to line up it sometimes.
Okay.
Like you got to be able to cut it, extract that audio, and do it smack dab. On this particular case, I think I pulled the audio and then tweaked something on the video, and then I had to try to rematch the audio back up with the video, and it was slightly off.
Yeah.
But I put it on YouTube, and somebody made a comment like that, like, "Well, if you're gonna fake it, or something like that." So I've been accused of faking it. Wasn't even fake.
Yeah.
I was
It's
like,
bad editing.
yeah. Well, and I explained that. I'm like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, it's just my inexperience. Like, it's 100% real. I'm like, I definitely, with my brand and everything that I do, I'm always like very diehard about being like authentic and real. Like I said, like some production value is one thing, but like what I do is like not BS or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just funny. You'll catch flack on that end too, man. But I'm always like, you know
You'll
what?
catch flack for anything.
If you think like the guy thought, I guess like I don't know, if I sounded that much like Steve Ray Vaughan, man, that's all great in my book, man. I'll take that as a compliment, man. But,
Yeah, I wonder, sometimes when you see bands that are on record, they're very produced. Like, for instance, the Bee Gees. I took a girl to a Bee Gees concert when I was in high school because I liked her. And I didn't like the Bee Gees. Well, I didn't hate the Bee Gees, but it was, there was pop on the radio, and I was into Led Zeppelin and Beatles and that. Yeah. So I went to the concert. It's very produced. How can that, But what I saw was three guys with one of them with an acoustic guitar, and they could reproduce that sound.
Yeah.
And it's like, so the question is, I guess you produce like that because that's the industry standard. But man, when you got guys that can deliver like that, I was dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Just dumbfounded. They
Absolutely.
were amazing.
When it comes to recording and stuff, I'm a big fan of staying current when it comes to like the way things are, production wise. When it comes to like an album or single and stuff like that, because you got to understand that the listener is used to hearing things that way, and it's hard for them to kind of accept something that's not up to that sonic standard, right? So recently with this past few singles that I've been doing and having Eric Rickert, he's been doing all my mixing and all that. He works at Big Animal Studios, works with a lot of guys in town. A phenomenal guy. He worked on a lot of the Shine Down stuff, a lot of big stuff. But I remember at first I was very hesitant to mix anything or do anything like a modern deal. I wanted just drums, bass, guitar, vocals, that's it. And he's kind of the one that introduced, do multiple guitar parts to thicken it, to make it seem wider and bigger. He's like, think of it like a movie. It's like, if you just shoot it off a phone, yeah, okay, great. But if you, once you do kind of like that editing and you have the color tuned in a certain way, now it looks like a finished product. And I was like, okay. And it took me a long time to kind of like come around. But after I started getting some success on that, like Just Go Baby started getting played by major, rock radio stations in Atlanta, which they wouldn't have done if I did it myself. I had to have that sonic level in order for it to be able to reach. So I'm like, wait a minute, okay, I'm holding myself back by trying to keep myself in this box again,
Yeah.
So I started letting that kind of slide when it came to that kind of deal. I still try to keep it as organic as possible. I don't want like a bunch of guitars and stuff like that, you know.
Well, it can be overkill if you do it wrong, right?
Exactly, yeah. And again, like I gotta be able to take that and be able to play it on stage as well. It's gonna seem really weird if I do that. And some songs I was finding don't translate like that.
Yep.
It's like I have these guitars laying down the rhythm part, and then I hit in that kick and lead part. I can't do that live because then when I go to that kick and lead part, there's no
Everything
rhythm, and then
falls out.
exactly. So it's like there's certain things you gotta kind of take in stride. You gotta gauge correctly, but you gotta. I feel like, at least for me, there's a lot of people again that I think are phenomenal that have that vintage sound, and that's great. You know, that's awesome. Just like when it comes to food, you have your grandma's recipe that should stay there, and then you got the new fusion food that's there's room for that as well, right? Yep. But for me personally, I want to try to, again, my mission is to have this reach as many people as possible so rock and roll gets spread on to the next generation. And I don't think I can do that properly if I'm not meeting that kind of that standard when it comes to you know, music sonically.
That makes sense.
So I try to do that, and I do the same thing with my content. Just a little subtleness, you know, there's nothing fake or, you know, nothing that's not organic about it. But having just like a little bit so it meets that standard of quality.
Yep.
I want that quality behind it.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do with my entire brand is just have that quality. Right down to my T-shirts. I don't, like, I want a quality T-shirt that I would wear. I want the print to be like that.
Yep.
I want the CD to be like that. I want everything to reflect something that I can put my name on and be confident about.
There you go.
So with that, where can people find your stuff? Where can we go?
You can go right on jaredpetteys.com. I have all my music digitally available there. I have a lot of stuff right now that's only available digitally, but I do have a CD out. I have a 5-song EP that's out. I do have a record, my previous one, that is actually sold out now out of physical copies. I think with my shifting of new sound and all that, I don't know if I'm going to bring that back to a mechanical copy. However, all my singles that I'm releasing are going to be part of a at least 12-song LP that hopefully should be wrapped up by this year. So you can check it out there. Streaming-wise, it's on every platform, Amazon, Spotify, Deezer, you know, anywhere, title anywhere you get music. And, of course, to the live shows. That's the best place to get it. You know, support live music. And
they can get your schedule on your website and all that good stuff. Follow you on social, the whole thing.
Yep. Right, Jared Petteys and the headliners. The spelling's a little wonky. You know,
we'll make sure we put it on the screen so people can, put it in the show notes so that people can pull it out of there. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But, yeah, support live music. Yeah, there's a lot of
buy
people
local
out there doing
seafood.
It. Exactly. Yeah,
I'm a low country guy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've gotten seafood inland before. It's it's a little off.
Well, really great having you in here. It's, you're a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
I love your
thank you all.
music.
I appreciate y'all.
We're psyched to set up and play a little music and hear your
I'm
stuff,
looking forward to that.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, man. This has been great. Thank you so much. This is my first official podcast, actually. So
And you're the
about
first one we've had that has been perfect with the microphone. Have you noticed that?
You've actually been great
Oh,
with
yeah.
the mic.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yep.
Oh man, I guess I'm a
Usually you have to give
official
little hints to people.
podcaster.
Have to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. OnlyFans, Scott Noonan.
Hey, you got to make money somehow, man. It's tough being a musician these days. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, buddy. Well, thanks for coming to this place and play a little bit of music.
Yeah, sounds good.
Nice.
All right, cool.
What is gold, baby? What is gold, baby? Just minding my own business when I lock eyes with you. It's like a sucker punch in the gut now, baby, at the same time lovely too. Well, I don't fall for good looks, and I don't look for style. But if you don't have both, then hard to go. Do yourself a little favor, don't waste your time. And I could tell from the way you stare that you're just looking for attention. Well, just go, 'cause my heart can't stand this hypertension. Well, just go, baby. We'll just go, baby. I see you moving closer. I smell your sweet perfume. Run around this fade away. You're the only one in the room. I see your lips are moving, but I can't hear a sound. Because my face is numb and my eyes are dry, and my guts just laying there on the ground and start to get it twisted. If that is your intention, we'll just go, cause my heart can't stand this hypertension. Yeah. Thinking, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know what will happen if I give my love to you. I know I'm overthinking, no need to understand. I'm throwing caution to the wind now, baby, just take my hand.
Thank you for watching Open Mic with Groove Kitty. We hope you enjoyed the episode. This podcast is for you, so please make sure you share, like, follow, and subscribe. When you do, it increases our exposure on every platform. This, in turn, helps to promote our guests. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. Thanks again. We'll see you all again soon.